You're watching Reality Check, a new twist in the escalating controversy over the status of PMCares, the prestigious fund in the Prime Minister's name set up to raise money to support India's COVID response. Since it was set up in March, the fund has received hundreds of crores of donations from CEOs, celebrities and government companies. But new documents only fuel accusations that the government has conveniently either bent rules or definitions of PMCares to make it easier to receive money, but harder and harder to know how it is being spent. At times, the government claiming that PMCares is a private entity that can refuse public scrutiny and refuse RTI requests, and sometimes claiming it's a government body, allowing it to receive crores of corporate donations. My colleague Arvind Gunasekar, who's been breaking this big story, joins me tonight. Now, Arvind, as you've been pointing out in your reporting, that the PMCares has put out its trust deed. This is the latest document that's emerged. This trust deed is actually dated from March this year, when the trust was registered first with the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, as chairperson. Now, this trust deed says that it's a private entity, not owned or controlled by the government. Now, ordinarily, Arvind, this would be commendable that they finally put this out and clarified that they're a private body. They can't be accessed by the RTI. The only problem, as you pointed out, is that also in March, in the same month, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs issues a memo which says that the Prime Minister Cares is a government entity in order for it to be able to receive corporate social responsibility or CSR funds, because under government rules, any donations to government funds set up for relief qualify as CSR spending. So essentially, Arvind, it appears that the government, in its attempt to make itself more opaque for public scrutiny, but also to receive funds, has tied itself up into knots.
Yeah, Vasu, is the Prime Minister Cares Fund is a private entity or a government body? That question has still not got a clear answer yet. The mystery deepens with this new document. In fact, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had defined Prime Minister Cares Fund as a government trust, whereas this particular trust, the trust deed of the Prime Minister Cares Fund that has been registered with the Revenue Department of the National Capital Territory, Delhi, on March 27th with Prime Minister Narendra Modi as the chairperson, says that it's not controlled, it's not directly or indirectly controlled or owned by any of the government. In fact, that clearly says that it's a private entity. So if that's a private entity, according to the trust deed, if it's a private entity, then on the very next day, that is on March 28th, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had defined the same PM Cares Fund as a government entity, thereby allowing the corporates to donate to this particular fund under CSR.
Now,
so that's a very important question. Either the trust deed.
You're right. It's either one or the other. Now, the reason why, this is the graphic we up on the screen. It's called the Prime Minister Cares Controversial Chronology. The reason for this, Arvind, as we've been saying, is the following: that on 27th March, it is set up as a private trust. But then they realized that a private trust may not be able to receive corporate donations under what is called the CSR funds. They're not eligible to. So, on 28th March, this government memo from the Corporate Affairs Ministry that you mentioned converts, quote unquote, converts Prime Minister Cares into a government entity. But then they realize that if it's a government entity, they'll have to be scrutinized under RTI. So then on 26th May, the rules were amended in a sense to reconvert it back into a private entity. So that is the sequence, and that's why, as you said, we still don't know, almost what, 9 months down the line, whether this body is a private trust or is it a public entity. Arvind, that's the mystery which still remains.
Yeah, Vasu, in fact, Vasu, that's the answer still no one has able to get as of this moment. While the Ministry of Corporate Affairs conveniently they defined it as a central body to get the funds, while the PMO still even till date they are maintaining that it's not a public authority, so they cannot divulge any information about this fund even under RTI.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Arvind, for that. And this is in fact the document, the trust deed which has been put out in the public domain, which, as we said, says that this is a private body. Now, let's look at the problem with this, though, because let's just put up that graphic on the screen where the Prime Minister Cares is a private fund, but it keeps getting the government stamp. just have a look at this. Government sites are promoting this private trust, whether it's the PIB site, whether it's the PMO India, Labour Ministry, they're all saying donate to PMCares fund on their websites. Next, this is a private trust that's using a government domain. The PMCares website actually has a .gov.in domain, which is a domain that is only used by government websites. Again, this is a private trust. Should it be allowed to use a government domain? And then finally, as the Quint reported, a number of Indian embassies overseas are also promoting this private trust on their website, saying contribute to PMCares. And herein lies the confusion, and herein lies the controversy. All right, joining us tonight on Reality Check, we have with us Anjali Bharadwaj, social activist, co-convener of the NCPRI, the Right to Information body. Also joining us is Yashovardhan Azad, who's been a former Chief Information Commissioner. Shama Mohammed of the Congress is with us, and so is Geeta Bhatt, political analyst, supports RSS/BJP. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So Anjali Bharadwaj, because you've been amongst those RTI activists who've been closely tracking PMCares, with this new document and new revelation, which ideally should have led to greater transparency, actually has only deepened the confusion over what is PMCares. Is it private or is it public?
Well, Srinivasan, what you said is absolutely right. The government clearly wants to have it both ways. When it is coming to giving information, being transparent, submitting itself to the Right to Information Act, the government has been saying that they are not a public authority, which basically means under the RTI Act, any body that is set up by the government is a public authority.
Right.
So which means the government is saying we are not set up by the government, we are not a public authority. But when it comes to accessing money and taking money into the PMCares fund, the government has no hesitation to put in writing that the PMCares has been set up by the government of India. So the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had put out a clear circular saying that CSR funds can be given by companies to the PMCares fund because it has been set up by the government of India, by the central government. Now, this is actually very unfortunate because this could only mean one of two things, Srinivasan. One, that there is a very serious financial fraud happening here.
Right.
And I'll tell you why I say that. Imagine if a private body is set up and it has nothing to do with the government.
Right.
Then to get money, they say that we are set up by the government and access thousands of crores of funds.
Right.
What will you describe it as except a serious financial fraud?
Okay, let me...
And if
Yes.
that is not the case, then the government has to come clean. It has to submit itself to the Right to Information Act.
Okay. We'll come to the question of the fraud allegations in a second. But just first on the actual the law and the confusion over the status, Yashovardhan Azad, as a former Chief Information Commissioner, what do you make of this entity which at times behaves and comes across like a sarkari entity, a public authority, at times claims it's a private entity to prevent itself from being scrutinized under the RTI?
Actually, Vasu, either way, they don't escape the RTI Act. Because even the RTI Act, as Anjali said just now, you know, the way the substantial funding has been facilitated or given by the government, it brings it under the ambit of the RTI Act. For example, if you see the Board of Trustees, the total control lies with three other board trustees: Defense Minister, Foreign Minister, Home Minister. The Prime Minister is the chairman. The funding has been done from the corporations, which our corporation, the government corporations also under CSR.
Right.
And even if it has been publicized on the websites, and therefore it cannot escape the scrutiny of the RTI. And in fact, if I just want to very quickly give you an idea that, that both the governments, even the earlier government, did not give information about the Prime Minister National Relief Fund.
Right.
And in 2012, the CIC had given a decision that is a public authority. It went to the High Court. And in the High Court also gave a decision in favor of the CIC, but the government tenaciously fought the case and sent it to a division bench. And in that, one judge said that it comes under RTI, the other judge said it does not come under the RTI, and it's awaiting the third judge, and therefore it is pending decision. Taking the cue from there, they have tenaciously fought and said that this does not come under the RTI.
So it had to be, they literally were battling in court to try to prevent it from greater transparency. As you said, this is not unique to this regime. It's been happening in the past as well. But Geeta, but that's the point that, you know, again, this question of fraud. Now, one could turn around and say, where's the evidence of fraud? And fair enough. But then why this constant battle to obfuscate information about PMCares? Because as Anjali said, crores of rupees have been collected. We don't even know how much. One estimate, and we can put that up on the screen, says that close to 10,000 crores may have been collected just until May alone, which means now by December, the figure could be much higher. Why, Geeta Bharadwaj, go on trying to move the goalposts in an attempt to block access and information?
Well, Srinivasanji, you know, PM Care Fund was established under very exceptional circumstances. And we all know that it was due to COVID-19, and hence it was separated, because we have earlier also done a debate on this, where the issue was that why PMNRF was there, then why PM Cares Fund has been separately constituted.
No, separate is fine. Separate is okay.
No, I'm coming to that.
Separate is okay. Why not reveal? Why not say this is a public authority? Put it under RTI. Put out the information.
Srinivasanji, this has been, people have already taken it to the Supreme Court and have already put across to the Supreme Court that this money should be sent to NDRF or any other such body. This needs to be transferred. And if you permit me, I would just like to read 2 lines that when Supreme Court rejected and said that this PM Cares Fund is different from other charitable trusts, and it said that transparency is writ large in PM Cares Fund, both in terms of legal requirement and transparent management of funds received on a voluntary basis.
But you know, the fact is,
the Supreme Court judgment is saying.
No, I'll get Anjali Bharadwaj to respond to that. But I'm just saying, one second, Geeta ji, hear me out.
Yeah.
The BJP says we are party of the difference. We are not like the Congress. We are transparent about there's no corruption, all of that. Prime Minister says, na khata hu, na kisi ko khane dunga. Why allow this to go to the Supreme Court to battle it all the way there? What is the problem in disclosing how much money has PM Cares received and where it has been spent? We don't know that. If you know that, I mean, be very happy to share it with us, but we don't know as the public. Geeta Bhatt.
Well, Srinivasanji, time and again, the PM Cares Fund, as and when it has been giving money for purchasing of, for ventilators, and especially those under Atmanirbhar Bharat, which are being manufactured here in India, it has been, the information is being revealed time and again as and when the money is being spent.
No,
it is not that
only once.
Has not been revealed.
Only once. So, we are tracking this. With all respect, only once did the Prime Minister Cares Fund disclose. The PMO said we have spent 3,000 crores, which includes on ventilators and others. This was again way back somewhere around May or June, if I'm not mistaken. And this is only 3,000 of 10,000 crores collected as of May. So it's about a third. The money could be much more now. This is the only time the PM Cares Fund has disclosed a breakup of its finances. Otherwise, zero disclosure of how much money has come in and where all that money has gone. We don't know that. But the point Shama Mohammed of the Congress is, and we've been over this before, Shama, that you may well want to attack the government for lack of transparency, but as Yashowardhan Azad has pointed out, this has a precedence. Even during your government, you all fought tooth and nail to prevent a disclosure of the Prime Minister's fund.
Srinivasan, what you have to understand is that there is a Prime Minister National Relief Fund, and the Prime Minister started a new fund, she says, for COVID, which I do not agree at all. Because for me, this PM Care is a sleazy fund. Now here, like you said, there's a man who says that na khaunga, na khane dunga. I don't even understand how come we are discussing
But
something
what about the
like
Congress?
this.
No,
I'm
before
going-
we come to BJP,
I'm going to come to that.
what
Now,
about the Congress also in the Congress era government also fighting to block or to stall disclosure?
No, but in PMNRF, whatever fund is collected is there on the website. Where it is spent, it is also there on the website. Now also you have to understand, after PM
We'll have to
Narendra
check
Modi
that.
came to power, he is the sole disperser of the PMNRF. It's under his discretion, funds are dispersed in PMNRF. He is the one. So he could change whatever he wanted on PMNRF also, which he did not. And I have no understanding why he started this fund. A very important point is also, which you're not mentioning in this, is
Yes.
of course, that it's also exempt. It has also the FCRA exemption. Let's
This
not
is
forget
foreign
that.
contributions.
Yes. So
FCRA
what
is
happened?
foreign contributions. Yes.
Yeah. So what is a very important thing is, remember that when Kerala floods happened, we had got nearly 700 crores from
Yes.
Sheikh Mohammed to Kerala.
Yes.
He did not allow it, and now he's taking FCRA funds for this. I don't understand. So
Okay.
what is very clear? Wait, Srinivasa.
Okay. Let me come back to you. No, I'll come back to you.
But I'm going to finish one point.
No,
What
I'll
I
come
don't
back to you. I'm sure you have many
You
more
did-
points. But we
But
can't
you
have
did
all the
enough.
points. Let's rotate
but
the
you
strike.
give
The
me
fact is,
time to
Anjali Bharadwaj,
check the
I'll come
other-
back to you, Shama Mohammed. Just give me a second. Anjali Bharadwaj, the fact is that this Geeta Bhatt says is the status of the fund as well as the transparency has been tested in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't seem to be convinced that there's any problem.
So let me just clarify the factual position, Srinivasan. The Supreme Court was never seized of the matter as to whether the PMCares fund is covered under the RTI Act or not. There was the petition in the Supreme Court simply said that the funds of the PMCares fund should be transferred to the NDRF. There was no mention of whether it should be covered under the RTI law or not.
Okay.
So that should
NDRF
be very
being the
clear.
National
It has
Disaster
not
Fund.
been.
Right.
It is not something that the Supreme Court has spoken on. But let me bring in 2-3 things here. First of all, the whole point that is being made that some information, including now the trust deed, as you yourself said, has been put out in the public domain by PMCares. Now, is that adequate? The issue is that the entire purpose of bringing in the RTI law in a democracy, anywhere in the world actually, is that citizens should not have to depend on the goodwill of the government or any body to give them information as and when they
Right.
please. Citizens should have the right to ask for that information. So
Fair
let's
enough.
get that very clear. The second thing is, and I think that is really at the heart of the debate.
Yes.
What is there to hide?
Yes.
We are talking about a fund which has been set up to provide relief to people in disaster.
Yes.
Why should anybody want to hide that they are giving these funds? And why
That's the
should
point
it not
which
be
is-
clear
okay,
who
let
the
me-
donor is and where the funds are being spent?
Okay, I want to
especially
come
when we know.
to Yashovardhan Azad on that, but quickly let me get a reaction from Geeta Bhatt that Geeta ji, why hide? I mean, this is a fund which has the Prime Minister is the chairperson of the fund. On the document of the trust deed, his signature is there on every page. It's signed as Narendra Modi's signature is there on every page. And yet, why hide? What is this money, doing? What's the money being spent for? What's the secrecy?
Well, Srinivasanji, a couple of points I want to put forth, since Shamaji also had, put forth a few
No,
points.
just on that point.
I am coming to this also.
Why hide? Why hide?
No, yes, I am coming to that also. So, since 1985, when Rajiv Gandhi became the Prime Minister, the total discretion of dispersal of funds in PMNRF were taken by the Prime Minister.
Explain and go into
The
details,
national
and that's not
president
fair.
of a political
I need my
party.
time also.
No, we
Yes,
can't go back to now
political
Rajiv
parties
Gandhi. We are very
are
short on time.
I want to explain my point.
That becomes whataboutery. I am asking that right now the Prime Minister is Mr. Narendra Modi. His name is on the trust deed. My simple question is, why hide this money and how it is being spent from the public?
Srinivasanji, the contributions in this are totally voluntary, and those which have been done under CSR, the companies are going to list it under their CSR if they have given any money. There is no reason of, I mean,
No,
it
but
can be
how
easily
does-
found out that which are the companies who are
So-
giving under
so-
CSR money to PMK.
So we
Because
have to
they
go
are
to
not
each
spending
company
money.
and see how each company is spending. I mean,
But that
Come
No,
now,
this
Geeta ji,
already- this is in public domain.
that
This
is
something which is in public
not an
domain,
answer
and
that
anybody
will
can
really
find out.
stand the test of logic.
And
But
that
anyway,
is how the amount which is being
can I
calculated
come to
and protected
Yashu Azad? Yashu
is
Azad Azad.
put forth.
Okay, Yashovardhan
Can I-
Azad, my point to you is, you want to come in also, but my point to you is, in this situation, you're saying that even if they claim that this is, that they're claiming they're exempt, they are a public authority, but if they're refusing to part with the information, is there anything the Central Information Commission can do?
Absolutely. In 2012, the Chief Information Commissioner had given a decision in favor of the PM's Relief Fund to come under the RTI.
Right.
And it was against this decision that the government had gone to the court.
Right.
Now, similarly, I want to give you a very simple piece of information. Venkatesh is one of the intrepid crusader of RTI who had asked questions. The two questions he had asked about the institution's donation to the PMCares fund, they were denied on the grounds that it is not an RTI. And secondly, he had asked a question to the Ministry of Home Affairs as to the copy of the exemption letter exempting it from the FCRA. So in that, the third party PMO was referred to, and the answer given was, since the PMO is objecting, we cannot even give you the copy of the exemption letter. Now, this is a real pitfall for the democracy, because if simple information is not forthcoming to the people, then it's a very sad thing. Whenever a government machinery is used for whether it's collection, dissemination, disambiguation, it is incumbent upon that organization to give details. For example, if a public audit is denied, there is just no rationale behind it. So whether you think of it as claiming itself to be an NGO, but doing a substantial funding program through the NEA websites, it is incumbent upon them to give this information, RTI or no RTI.
That's true. That's the whole point. In fact, we're almost virtually out of time. I'm told I have, 30 seconds left. That
Can I come in?
That the point is that Geeta ji and Shama Mohammed also wants to come in. PMCares is using every government platform to raise funds. But then it's saying we are not a government entity.
So Srinivasan, the most important point in this is when Prime Minister used PMNRF for Cyclone Oki and Fani, why did he have to start something over here where he's got government PSUs giving him more than 2,000 crore? That's our taxpayers' money. We have the right to know where it went.
Right.
But they don't want to tell us that is because they're buying MLAs with this money. They are using it.
Okay, no, hold on. That is,
right?
that is,
it is very clear,
those sort of charges. I mean, we can't,
I am going to say this on national television.
That's a political allegation.
That's why it is not an allegation, it's the truth. That's why they're hiding. Why is 1.5 billion crore,
okay, we're out of time.
Only 2 crores have been used.
Okay, we're out of time.
That is the question we need to ask.
Okay, but that's the whole point, that whether it's the PIB site, the PMO India site, labor.gov, it's got a government, domain name, and yet it claims to be a private entity. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining me on Reality Check, and thanks so much for watching. Good night.